I am your host, Nicole Will, and we thank you for joining us as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside elders, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversations. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the willGather podcast. We are facing considerable loneliness in our world right now, not only for our older adults, but our younger generation as well. And we're really searching for those meaningful connections. And how do we create connections and provide support systems for our older adults and support them in their health and their aging journey? Today, we shine a light on this amazing company that is bringing about positive change and impacting our world for good. In this episode, I have a meaningful conversation with Andrew Parker, founder and CEO of Papa. Papa pairs older adults and families with Papa Pals for companionship and assistance with everyday tasks. They also offer programs to health plans, providers, and consumers, and they've created this company with a goal to support older adults and their families throughout the aging journey. Andrew is a passionate and successful executive, and he brings his experience and wisdom to our conversation, and his love of older adults is really evident in this story and their mission. And how awesome that a company is created that everyone wins: older adults, families, employees, and we get to hear about their story. We talk about loneliness, those health disparities, social isolation, the impact of COVID, a call to our younger generation to serve and support others, and how meaningful those intergenerational connections can be. You don't want to miss it. Here's my conversation with Andrew Parker. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for being willing to visit with me. I so appreciate that. We were both led to our profession by the influence of our grandparents. Tell us about you, your grandfather, and what led you to create Papa.
Sure. So I originally created Papa not as a business, but as a way to solve a personal need, which I think a lot of people in the aging space, end up doing. Obviously, I'm not that old myself, so I've not felt the direct impact. But my grandfather, who we called Papa, hence where our business name comes from, he needed help. He had early onset of dementia. He needed someone to drive him and help him and teach him and spend time with him and just be a friend. And so I thought it would be interesting to pair him with a young, fun, energetic college student. I thought was appropriate. Actually, I went for a nursing student, paired him with this young person named Andrea. She came from Venezuela about 5 years earlier. He came from Argentina to Miami 50 years earlier. And so I just thought it was a great pairing, connected the two of them. He didn't need bathing or toileting. He really needed a pal. And it was just almost like a miracle. My grandfather, who was kind of hard to deal with, overnight, was like, wow, looking at this person as just grandkid on demand, or as we call it now, family on demand. And it was just a big aha moment for me. I was running a health company called MD Live at the time as part of their sales and strategy division. And I just thought, like, wow, Papa really likes this. So I tested it out with like 10 other people, my neighbors, or anyone who would be willing to try it. And they all had the same reaction to my grandpa. Like, they loved it, the person. And so I thought, wow, this is a big idea. Obviously started looking into it more, and then realized that this is, my chance to leave my job and just go at it full time and, create Papa to connect older adults and families to Papa Pals.
They bring such life when you pair that younger generation with an older adult. There's so much that can happen. The learning, there's like it's mutually beneficial. They can feed off of each other and enjoy that company and have so much conversation.
Yeah, it's wildly powerful. I actually this morning in San Diego in the news was one of our pals on live TV talking about his personal experience, and it was not scripted. And he's 22 years old, and I don't think he's ever been on national TV before. And it's just so powerful to see, like, not only the impact it has on our members, but also on the pals. I mean, my grandpa had, going back to the original, he traveled like 100 countries. He's from Argentina. He spoke 6 languages. He had his own business. So I'm getting the chills thinking about it. So the knowledge that he passes on to a younger person is almost more valuable. But then he also needs someone to drive him and teach him and show them how to use technology. And so it's just a perfect kind of intergenerational connection. And, really what I think led Papa to where we are today is we're not a home care company. We're not a traditional healthcare solution, though we are a healthcare company. And we're able to break down that barrier, and members love it, and pals love it, and people are getting paid, and it's free to the members. So it's very cohesive.
Yeah. And, we'll get into this as we talk more, but it is also not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, where you have to sign this big, long contract, right? It's as needed. 1 month, this might be something I really want to participate in. And then a couple months might go by where I think I'm doing okay and I've got some family in town or whatever that is, which I think is really attractive because you're not fear of committing to something that's indefinite, that's going to be for a set period of time.
Yeah. I mean, traditional home care was structured in that way. And that makes sense. There's a shortage of caregivers. Ultimately, it's got to be focused on how to build a business. And it's hard to build a business in home care if someone's only doing 1 hour or 2 hours. But our entire model was structured around that. And also our pals were trained around that. And then now we have enough members where pals are actually doing this as full-time jobs. So it's no longer just college students exclusively. It's really anyone who goes to our platform and our process, which is quite difficult. Less than 10% of people that apply get on. It's a personality test, it's a background check, it's a training module, and it's constant, continuous monitoring. And, it's a good way to make a living. Or if you just want, on the other side, you can do 1 hour.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
My mom's a pal sometimes. She's a virtual pal. She's a lawyer,
I love it. It's so flexible. It really meets people where they're at. And I think our world is used to that now, and we appreciate that. I really am connected to stories and businesses that have positive change in our world and impact our world for good. And your focus has been supporting older adults and really meeting their needs. How have you seen COVID impact our elders at this time?
COVID is obviously a crazy disaster impacting everyone. It disproportionately impacts, as we all know, older adults and those with chronic illnesses and a history of illness. I was in Colorado when COVID, really hit hard, and everyone's kind of scrambling to figure out what to do. And I had a business that sends young people into old people's houses. Yeah. It's like the worst thing you can possibly have. And, for us, we didn't think about this isn't going to work anymore. We thought about how do we help people in this situation, and it was really all hands on deck at Papa, kind of a turn on a dime, our business, our platform, our strategy, to really enhance what I always wanted to do with virtual visits, but couldn't frankly do because seniors weren't necessarily that interested in it or didn't know how to do it. And when COVID hit, boom, it was a big behavior change for really everyone.
Right.
Most of us are working at home. I'm working in a kind of a little area here with a laptop. And older adults also said, I've been lonely and I've been isolated, but everyone's isolated now. Maybe it's not that, it's something I could be okay with. And so we turned on virtual visits to provide assistance from a distance, as we call it. So we're still calling people. We're still doing video chats with people. In December, we did over 40,000 virtual visits with older adults.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because though it was bad reasoning that this happened, it's opened up a whole new world to be able to support people in new ways. And our mission is to support older adults and families throughout the aging journey. And just because you're 65 and above, that's a huge gap. That's 40 years or 50 years if you're lucky, really lucky. And so to be able to provide a service and a technical access the way that makes most sense to the person. If you're good at telephone, you're good at video, but you still need to go grocery shopping. You may still need to go get dialysis. You may still need chemo. You may still need someone, to help you around the house. So we did assistance from a distance. We were dropping off groceries. We're dropping off prescriptions. We're going to, Home Depot for members. We're helping them clean their home while they're in another room in a safe environment. We wear masks and we sanitize, and it's very well thought out. Today, it's starting to come back. A lot of our members have gone through the second phase of vaccines, and we're helping with that in a pretty significant way. And actually, to our surprise, and it's happening in a positive way, 30% of our members on a daily basis are doing in-person visits now.
Okay.
And so we're seeing that kind of swing back. And it's great because now they're used to virtual, they're used to in-person, and we can really make an impact on people's lives, kind of on a more consistent basis. I can't come to your house every day but I can
Right.
reach out to you and I can connect you.
Yeah, there's more options. I think we're more open. Like you said, it's the silver lining of COVID has been we're able to connect in ways that we might not have really entertained before. You talked about the elders and our older adults being lonely and isolated, and it is harder to communicate those words and say, okay, I'm lonely or I'm feeling sad. I'd like some company. But it is a little bit easier to say, can you help me with my groceries? Can we go to the doctor's office together? But within that, those vital connections can really happen and start to create that relationship and fight against some of that. But also on the other side of things, we have a younger generation that also struggles with loneliness as well. What's your insight into that with our younger generation and how it's impactful for them?
Yeah, I mean, according to a recent Cigna study, I believe this is the second year of it happening. They found that the two loneliest generations are older adults and college age individuals.
Yeah.
And I actually have four brothers myself, and two of us are older, well, my 30s, and then two of them are 18 and 21.
Wow. Yeah.
And they are in college during COVID. They just started school. It feels to them that their
Yeah.
experience got ripped away, and
Right.
to a degree it did, and I feel bad about it. And we try to engage, but they're lonely, and they become pals because they also want to interact with people, and they of course like helping the family business at this stage,
Yeah.
even though it's not a business per
Yeah.
se. But we're seeing these younger people that some of them don't get along with people their age. Some people, they're in their Facebook, they're in their social media, they're interacting on games, but they're not going out. Like
Yeah.
my whole life was a social butterfly. There's not one moment in my life I don't remember like
Yeah.
being with 50 people. And that's true to today. And, hence why I'm like the king social butterfly. Now I
Yeah.
own the companionship business at Papa, but
It's
that's not true
perfect.
for everyone. My brothers are not like that. They're, a lot of our pals are not like that, and they get more interest and excitement hanging out with older people. So what we're finding is they're lonely, but they're getting a lot of value out of it. And what I think about loneliness, I think about it as the only universal disease. I mean, unless you're a complete sociopath, most likely you've experienced
Right.
loneliness in some capacity, some very detrimental, some
Yeah.
on the lighter end. So we could sympathize with anyone to be like, you're 80, you're alone, you live alone, you don't have television, you don't have an iPhone, you barely know how to get up from your couch. That's obviously going to hurt your health. And I'm a pal who, I don't have the same health issues necessarily, but I could see how you could get to that place. It's so nice for them to come together and be like, wow, I'm here for you. And by the way, I'm also here for you
Right.
with the pal side. So kind of, back and forth. So anyway, that's how I think about it. And we actually have done studies mostly on members on the impact of loneliness and the cost reduction to the healthcare system. But we're actually now starting to do the impact on the pals. And it's really interesting. There's so many different personalities and interests and loneliness levels.
Yeah.
And it's cool because over time, our platform's helping us to figure this out,
Right.
collecting data,
Yeah.
automatically iterating, understanding voice inflection, and then tagging that to like a response and looking at mood. So it's really cool, some of the products that we're bringing into Papa. Whereas before it was like my cell phone, and me begging 10 Papa pals to go to, Mary's house. It's like a fully automated, system that it's smarter. It's really advanced. I mean, even me, I have a product sales strategy background, but like to see some of the tech we're bringing into this, it's amazing.
Yeah. And that's only going to really, my guess is, then influence how you grow and progress to meet those needs because you'll really be able to have that data.
So imagine during a visit on a Wednesday at 9 a.m., a member says, I'm really sad. I don't feel that well. And, I don't know if there's any reason to be living. Like we hear that. And it's hard for us to quality assure every single call, every single interaction, every single visit, every in-person visit. But if we track that and that happens again, we flag it and automatically we escalate it and we can bring in other services. Behavioral health, we're actually adding Papa Docs and a network of physicians and behavioral health providers. So my dream is started as companionship, and that's our core. But like now we feel almost obligated to help people in more ways.
I'm excited to watch it all come together. You mentioned some of those loneliness studies, and when you talked about the different personalities, that is so me. Like, I'm probably historically always been that older soul where I connect so much, not better because I've got really good girlfriends and friends, but I've always connected with the older adult. It's like my comfort zone and who I gravitate to, the conversation and all of that. So I can see different personalities, right, for different people. And you shared some of those relationships, but is there a story that stands out to you of how you've really, really seen that impactful relationship and experience come out of that Papa experience?
Yeah, so thousands a day, but I will explain a couple off the top of my head. We had this member who had a family wedding coming up, and she was 90, and she wanted to go to the wedding and dance without being a burden to the rest of the family. And she felt really important that she did not want to be a burden at this wedding. She wanted to just be a fun grandma participant. So we paired her with a female pal. The pal's name, if I recall correctly, was Lauren. And they went to the wedding, until almost midnight. And the pal dressed up, and they were each other's friend date, obviously. And I get the chills talking about these stories. I mean, it really is amazing. And they're still together today. We had a member that was like one of the early female, like not pro, but like one level down surfers. And this lady is like 75 years old. And, she had some mini fame when she was younger. And I think she was in the newspaper. And, she's older. She couldn't walk that well. But she didn't have a chance to kind of re-engage her younger spirit. So we paired her with a pal. And the woman lived like 5 miles from the beach. And her and the pal went to the beach. And they just dipped their feet in the sand, in the water. And they really, the older person was talking about her surfing career, and the pal, who's like young and like surfing, was like, this is so amazing, like this is who I want to be when I grow up. We had one kind of really funny story where we had a member and a pal. The member wanted to go bike riding, and he was pretty fine, but he had light dementia, meaning like sometimes he would be fluid and go in and out, but generally he was okay. They get on the bike, they're riding. We get a call from the daughter and says, my dad got home before the pal by 30 minutes, and she was freaking out. We're like, it is early days of Papa. I'm like, oh my God, we're so sorry. She goes, I failed to mention my dad won the Tour de France.
No.
Many years ago. And I'm like, your dad may have dementia, but those legs still cook. And she goes, do you have any? I'm like, so we don't need professional cyclist pals, but we have cycling pals. That's not like a breakdown, but we found pals that were good at cycling, and the next time they're able to keep up. But that was such a funny story. I'm like, that's amazing. We have the first paparazzi, the guy that became famous, which I don't know if he's proud of that anymore, but early on being a paparazzi, and he wanted a pal to take him around to take photos, and just endless stories.
So great.
But not always is it good. I mean,
yeah.
And when I say not good is we walk into a house and it's a disaster, or there's mold everywhere.
Yeah.
And the member has COPD or congestive heart failure, chronic heart and lung issues, and they're mold and they're coughing and they can't get in touch with the doctor.
Yeah.
And then the pal says, hey, how are you doing? Well, I'm not doing good. And here's why. So we tell the health plan who we partner with mostly, and then they bring in a cleaning unit. They bring in, mold support team. I forget the proper term. Because these things are going to kill the woman. And now they got in touch with a virtual primary care physician, which is a Papa doc. And so collectively, we're able to get this person into a better health status.
Well, what it just really speaks to is how individualized it is, which is right in healthcare. That is the buzzword, so to speak. Okay, person-centered, right? Where we're trying to have it be individually focused. And that is exactly what happens when you can match up one person with another person and be able to say, what do you like to do? How can I meet you where you're at? How can we support you? And that can be surfing or bike riding, or that can be, let's address a critical health issue. And so it just speaks to that individuality. Well, I had a couple of thoughts when you were talking. Is that one thought I had was the image on my podcast cover actually is of my grandmother, and she is all dressed up, and we're at a wedding actually. And so She wanted, and she took such pride in having her makeup done every day and wanted a really fancy outfit and loved dancing, wanting to be on that dance floor. I can totally relate to that. And the other thought I had is, I get older every day, right? If I'm dating myself, just turned big 40.
Oh
And
my God.
I still feel like I'm 22 half the time. So I talk to a lot of older adults that have that same thought. They'll look in the mirror and be like, I am really not 75. Like, I don't feel 75. I still want to be doing all the things that I love. And in our minds, I think, as no matter our age, there's a big part of us that still really feels youthful and can identify with that. And so being able to have someone help us bring that out a little bit that's priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's at the core of what we do. Just because you're older doesn't mean you're done.
Right.
And age is so interesting because you could be 75 and that could mean 100 different states in terms of athletic ability, health status, age kind of in the more colloquial term. And so we try to keep members youthful to best of our ability. And I think we're making an impact. And I know we are because we're studying it, not only the cost, but like, do you feel better? Are you happy? Do you feel cared for? What gives you energy? Are you getting those things that give you energy? And we're constantly figuring that out. Someone that, what gives you energy? I love going to the library. Well, when was the last time you went to the library? In a post-COVID, pre-COVID world, then, I barely left my room. Or I love going to the gym. Really? Oh, I was a bodybuilder. What? When's the last time you lifted a weight? Well, I'm like, I barely leave my house. Well, you want to do some chair exercises? So like, obviously not everyone's going to be the same level when they were 22 as 75 or 85 or 95. Some people may, but to at least give them that spirit, that's what you can't remove. If you crush the spirit, you crush the person. And that's really where things start to go downhill.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. So, okay, if we're going to distill it down and talk logistics, how does someone become a part of the pop-up program? I'm going to kind of address a couple of things. So, if you could walk us through, if I want to be a pal and if I'm an older adult and I'm like, okay, this sounds really something helpful, or a family member, what does that look like?
Sure. So, all starts with joinpapa.com or our 1-800 number or through your health plan. But just to start with the PALS part of it, the PALS go through an onboarding process and application. It's, an online application where they're doing a personality test. They're answering questions to quizzes and an assessment. They have to upload, photo ID, photos of their car, photos of or information on their VIN number. We do a social media scan, background check. So it's a little thorough.
I like it.
Pretty thorough. Only like 8 to 10% of PALs that apply get on. You don't have to be a college student. You could be a stay-at-home mom. You could be a stay-at-home dad. You could be just a person. There's no age requirement other than you have to be 18. Most of our PALs are about 29 years old and female. That's kind of where the demographic lies. And then once you get on, you go through a training. And once you pass that, you're able to do visits. Usually we start people off with a virtual visit to kind of ease them in. And then, through training, get them onto an in-person visit. Once you're there, you just take visits, you follow the instructions, you engage with your members, and you can earn money and points equal dollars, and it's very gamified and it's actually fun. So that's on the PAL side. On the member side, 95% of our members get this through their insurance carrier. So depends on who's your insurance and whether or not they've offered this to you as a benefit. Today, we're offering it to almost 1 million members. So it's a good amount of people. We want that to grow 3 to 5 times next year, if not more, and hope to help, obviously, and give a PAL to everyone at some point. We can support people through our consumer service. It's, on average, $22 an hour. Most people do it through their insurance because depending on their insurance, they may get 100 hours a year for free or 200 hours a year for free. So you can call us or go to our website, joinpapa.com, joinpapa.com, and that's the primary methods. And it's been very exciting. I mean, we went from just Miami, Florida, where I'm sitting right now. Got the Brickell City Center behind me, the kind of heart of Miami. This is the new Papa office. We started in this area, and we're now national. So we're available in pretty much every market. If it's a rural market in the middle of nowhere, we still will help you, and we still can. It may not be today. Maybe it takes 72 hours or something to set you up, but we will be there for you virtually until we're ready for in person. And we just are very proud to be able to help older adults and families throughout the aging journey. And so, glad to be able to tell people about it on this podcast.
I like that it's such an extensive process to onboard your pals because it gives people that peace of mind. They want to make sure who is coming into their home and visiting their loved one is gone through some of those checks and balances, I think is important for sure. You had talked about this with the healthcare plans, and not only does Papa support those older adults through your traditional PALS program, but steps in and provides some healthcare support. So that includes correct virtual visits from Papa Docs and also utilizing health care insurance programs and Medicare Advantage. How does that improve our healthcare?
Yeah, so social determinants of health is kind of the big general topic. And what that really means is if you're lonely and isolated and don't have a car and don't have money and don't have food and don't have a house, bad things happen. I think that's always been obvious, but health plans and healthcare and the government as well is now saying, you know what, there is a cost here too. And, cost drives a lot of impact. And so if we're able to proactively help people and find out their needs or provide them direct access to support them, drive them, provide companionship, help them with food, they're going to live longer. They're going to be happier. They're going to be healthier. And that's important, obviously, but also important to Medicare Advantage and Medicare and, as well, Medicaid, which is a program we support as well. So this movement's been significant. The government, pays health plans to care for the older adults as they age, and Papa is now part of that. And so most of our members get benefit through their Medicare Advantage provider or Medicaid provider. And it's a way to really proactively help them. If I go to your house and you have a ripped up carpet and you have no lights, you're going to trip, you're going to break a hip, you're going to end up in the hospital. They'd rather, financially speaking, keep you in the home as long as possible and keep you happy and healthy. And then a pal can do that in a big way.
Yeah. And it's so true. When you're more proactive about healthcare, then you're not maybe going to have to address people in crisis as much. Looking at more of that healthcare piece, but also how are those health plans viewing the need to not only address, some of those acute issues, but also the companionship?
Yes. I mean, the core of what we do is companionship. And then we bring in a Papa Doc, which is a physician, or other providers to support people. But really our main focus is to hang out and help out. The ancillary benefit of that is all those things I just mentioned. So by going to your house and just being your friend and making you feel good and making you feel like a human, suddenly you start taking your medicine more. Suddenly you start eating a little bit healthier. You get excited for the Wednesday when your pal is going to call you or come over. So you get dressed, you put on makeup. If you don't see one for weeks at a time and you're older, you're not going to do much. But if every Monday or every Tuesday or every other day or once a month, someone is going to interact with you, the way our care center thinks about it is because we have a full-time network of pals too, about 100 of them. They're calling a lot of people a day, the care team. But this may be the only phone call that the member gets that day or that week or that month or that year. And so just like thinking about that, by interacting with them and helping them with the schedule. How are you supposed to take your medicine if you don't even know what day it is? And not because you've lost your mind necessarily, but like you're just sitting there. Like I'm starting to forget what day it is.
Totally. Yeah.
Without my calendar, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do next.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, especially now.
So imagine being 80 and do the same thing. I'm 33.
Yeah. Perfect example. My career actually started, I was working on a transitional care unit, which is a fancy word for rehab. And we had all of our different disciplines that were involved. And it is a place where people come after they have health change, surgery, different things that prepares them for that next step, whether it's long-term care or back home. And there would be, in conversation with some of my patients, that part of their 911 call was because they wanted someone just to check in on them. And we have friends that are paramedics, and they were like, you would not believe how many times we go to people's homes because they just want to talk to somebody and they're missing out on that interaction. And so mitigating some of that, because that is a huge expense, but also there's such a better way to meet the need for our older adults that are in situations like that, where we're not involving an entire system that really needs to be available. And rightly so, you call 911 when needed, absolutely. But it was quite interesting to hear that that was a part of the piece of their stay, in their journey.
Yeah, no, there was a hospital, I think in Texas, that had 5,700 visits that they marked by like 100 people.
Yeah.
In a year period.
Yeah.
And 99% of them it just needed to be around another person.
Right.
I mean, we're social creatures, obviously,
Yeah.
and everyone knows that. And, who would have thought like a loneliness problem would be like the biggest issue in healthcare, 10 years ago, or definitely not 20 years ago. And so I think it's kind of a nice thing to see the progress of how we think about like what it means to be a human and like a person and like alive, and, how that affects our health. So I always think about like when you start a company or a startup, it's 20% of it, if not more, is like right time. And so though Papa was a positive impact always, or would have been, without a lot of the movement that's happened in the world today, Papa wouldn't have worked 20 years ago. It just wouldn't.
It's meant to be here, I think. And I also believe that we as a culture are having more of a conversation of our mental health. Whereas, how many years ago it wasn't something that was talked about as much. And so there's a social conversation that's happening. And part of that is really great because it's shining the light on some things that really need to be addressed. And we're able to identify that and say, okay, I'm going to connect this to this need. And this is actually what we're addressing, which is loneliness is a mental health issue. And so how do we do that effectively? If we're going to tie it back to, we want people to be a part of this vision and we want to help our older adults age successfully, and you mentioned this, right? We're human creatures. So there's something inside of us that really wants to help people. I personally believe we're born with that. We feel so much better. Like I would so much rather buy someone a gift than give a gift. Like I'd rather give a gift and buy that for them than receive it.
If you want to give a gift in most situations,
yeah,
you give a gift.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
buy you a gift, I'll like give you a
Right,
gift.
yeah. Perfect, yes. I know, like I get more excited about that. Yeah.
I wear the same outfit every day, so I don't need anything.
Yeah, totally. So if we're
helping people feel good,
Yeah.
And like, think about coming to work at Papa. Obviously, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid as much as you possibly drink the Kool-Aid, but like we're helping people for free. We're paying people to do it that need money. People need to make money to take care of their own families, and we're doing it in a way that's helping the world, and the government's paying for it for the most part through the insurance carriers. So, and the insurance carriers get value out of it too, because if they provide healthy, happy, services to their members stay with them. They get better star ratings, which is how they're measured, and they actually get bonus payments. So like, it's a very interesting business that truly by helping people, almost everyone's winning, and the government's paying for it, and they're winning because it's less money than it would have been. So
you're like I just created the dream company.
I know. Sorry, that's what I'm saying. Like I sometimes feel like too high up here, but it's not just me. I didn't do anything other than I came up with the idea and I started building a team, and we have 160 full-time employees, not including Papa Pals, and they all feel that. I hope if they don't, we want to know why and how we make sure that they feel it in a way that's authentic. Everything has to be really authentic and genuine here, and it's easy though because we really are just helping people. That's our only goal. Like one of our big objectives at the company is to provide value to members, to pals, to Papa people, which is full-time team, and to health plans. And if we provide value to all those people, and that's always how our business is thinking, it's awesome. It's fun to come to work because what did you do today? Well, we did 1,000 visits today, and this is what happened. And we helped people's lives, and we're also building a business at the same time. So
it's a powerful place to be. I mean,
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Awesome.
It's our brand new office that you're in. We just moved into, so it's going to be the Papa, H1, I'm calling it, headquarters. And this is also a place that's meant to be fun and collaborative. And, it's not, there's no traditional office setting here. It's open and it's engaging and, we'll have activities. And we're actually thinking about creating little little community centers for older adults too, where pals and members could meet. And we just have a great opportunity to help people, and we're going to continue to do that.
And for people that really have that altruistic mindset, and I fall into that category where it's like, I can't do something if I'm not feeling like this is going to be changing lives. I mean, some people can, and that is awesome, but there's a lot of us that really want to be able to be impactful. Our younger generation typically doesn't necessarily have been in that caregiving role before, would you say, right? It's tends to be maybe like a new thing for them. How would you, if you could encourage them, like, why would they consider being a part of this? I mean, I know we probably talked about all these reasons why over the last 30 minutes, but if you could impart them with like a couple things of why they should take the leap and step into that new role, what would you say to them?
Sure. So Papa doesn't do bathing and toileting, and that's not what I would say to them necessarily, but it opens up the opportunity to really the masses. You may not feel comfortable bathing someone, but I'm sure a lot of people feel comfortable hanging out and helping out. And so just think of it as being a grandkid on demand. So the same, if you have your own grandparents or your own parents that you've cared for, that's what this is. And, older people are just really happy to meet younger people for the most part. And generally it's an easy job, to be honest. So we're not doing the higher acuity stuff on the caregiving side. We're mostly, helping them drive them somewhere, helping them run a house, and you get paid for this. And it's very flexible. Yeah. And it's a good way to dip your toe in the water to understand, like, do I want to be a healthcare provider? Maybe I want to be a doctor. Maybe I don't.
Yeah.
And so it's not for everyone. There's a lot of self-selection. I talked about my 4 brothers. 2 of us, best Papa pals ever. 2 of us, great people. I wouldn't, they wouldn't even step foot in a senior's home, or let alone use that word. It's just not for them. So if you have any interest whatsoever to help the world in a way that, give back to older people that give a lot to this country, give a lot to this world, and probably give a lot to their families, you'll be old one day. Don't forget that.
Yeah. And
hopefully someone's there to care for you, or hopefully you're youthful enough to care for yourself. But everyone can use a pal.
Yeah.
Every single person at any age group, and, be a pal to each other, and try to be a pal to the world.
And one group of people that we haven't talked about a ton in this conversation is the family caregiver. So a lot of times I interact with people that are really responsible for overseeing their parent or their grandparent that is in the home. They're trying to have them age in place a little bit longer, or they've got their loved one, especially now with COVID, we're seeing it a lot, where they're living in their home with them. But they're also caring for their own children. They've got young children. They are still working. So it's another great example of that. Just because, okay, you might not fall into the category of an older adult that's living alone at home, but it can also be beneficial for a family that needs to add this resource as a part of their collective community of care, right? So some examples of that would be, I'm a family caregiver, but I want to go out with some friends and I need someone to spend time with my loved one. Would you agree with that? Is that how that could come into play?
So we would call that, traditionally respite care.
Yep.
And in fact, as I'm sitting here, I'm getting messages from the team about a new program that we just launched. We have always wanted to offer Papa as an employer benefit, which is really catered towards that sandwich generation. Someone like you, who you may have kids, or me, by the way, may have kids and a parent and are kind of stuck in the middle, helping the mom, helping the baby. And it's hard. It's hard to do that with work from home, with remote working, with COVID, with all this stuff. And you also have a job and you also have a life. So it's a very big balancing act. And, a third of family caregivers leave the workforce completely because of the burden and stress. 17% of employees are family caregivers. So of my 150 employees, a significant number of them are doing this. So actually the first employer client that got access to Papa Pals through an app that could request it for their mom, and we're exploring for child care as well, but in the early phases of it, was Papa employees. We have 150 people. Each one of them, may have this need. So we just expanded into employer benefits, family care app, where you could request a pal. You could send a pal to your family's home or to your own home while you're there. My mom, she used Papa all the time for my grandma. She called a pal. My mom was in one room. but she's a lawyer. So she's on these Zoom meetings, she's presenting, she's doing cases, she's in court, Zoom court, which is kind of cool. And my grandma's in the other room, and she, she had cancer, unfortunately, and she needed medicine and she needed food. And, my mom can't just walk in and out. And, of course, her mom takes priority over any job, but you got to make a living, and it's a double-edged sword. So family care is huge for us. It's something new for us, more so, not because we haven't always done it to a degree, but now we're national. So if you're in Chicago and your mom's in Florida, we can support you.
That is huge. A lot of caregivers do that from a distance. And so it gives them more option. I feel like it's such a big need. I'm excited to hear that you're doing that because there's such a high level of stress. They're so overwhelmed. They don't know who to go to. They don't want to infringe on other family members or a neighbor or a friend. I think it's it's delicate because they're trying to make it all happen. And it's easier to ask someone that is equipped and ready to do it. So I think it's a great addition. And also with that, it also can work in senior living communities, correct? If someone's got like an independent apartment or assisted living, it can be that extra support system there.
100%. So senior living is actually where I first went towards. Like anyone who starts a senior company,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm going to go to
Right.
5-star, I'm going to go to Sunshine Senior Living.
Yeah.
But those things are happening now compared to what I thought they would happen in the beginning. But yeah, so you could get a Papa Pal anywhere. Most of our services go through companies. So like if 5-star wanted to offer this nationally to their members, they can. If any senior living or hospital, et cetera, they can. So what's great about Papa is as we grow, we get more network of pals, and we can just support anything as we grow. And so it's really exciting. It becomes exponentially more
Right.
sophisticated and more network and just better experience. A pal in the middle of Milwaukee with one member, that's hard to maintain.
Yeah.
But if we're in Milwaukee with 1,000 pals, and we work with all the health plans there, and we work with all the senior facilities there, like once we're there, boom, 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 turn it all on, because it just makes the pals get more work and it gives them more opportunities and allows us to support the community in bigger ways.
Absolutely. So my background, I love working in the senior living community. That's how I started, more in a director position. But because I love that one-on-one connection, when I started working more in an entrepreneurial capacity, I still wanted that connection. So this is a perfect example of how they could have used the Papa Pal. Is there's a family that has their loved one in a memory care unit, but they travel quite a bit. They're gone. So they have me go a couple times a week just to like hang out, be like that adopted, right, granddaughter. And I get the benefit because it's what I love. It's not only my career, but my personal passion. And so it was like this perfect mixture of I'm able to support them and be kind of the eyes and ears when they're not around, but also build that relationship and have that personal connection with my residents. And so for people that are just thinking of how they can have that support system join in their life and their loved one, I think it's a really good option.
Yeah, 100%. Our mission is to support older adults and families throughout the aging journey. It's a broad concept of we will help you and we will try to get you into the right place. If it's not us, that's fine. And if someone calls us, we help. And if they don't have money, we're not a charity service, but we will help them. We're trying to make sure we can make a positive impact. And of course, we're trying to build a business, but the root focus of Papa is to bring value to everyone.
Well, that's a perfect way to wrap up our time today. I really hope, like you said, no matter what the need is, any question, we will direct people on our episode description to where they can find out more, and it's joinpapa.com. So any questions and information, and we are super supportive of you, and I wish you all the best in everything that you guys decide to do.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.